All aboard!
Extra.
Come in.
Sir. Sorry to bother you. I mailed the Northwest Territory proposal to Washington as you requested. Also, here's today's early edition. And a Mr. Frederick Billings applied for a manager position this morning.
Billings? Thought he was with Northern Pacific. What happened?
The details are on page 5, but the headlines pretty much give it away.
here you are, on the threshold of greatness. With the sweat and labor of the first spikes you drive, you'll be launching your first trains and at the same time an era of revolutionary transport. Watch as a nation grows with the help of your iron horses. The people of that nation, if not the whole dang world, are watching and hoping, so don't mess up. With the wheels in motion, railroads are emerging from everywhere. For every successful line, there are 4 bankrupt ones. Take advantage of the momentum you've managed to start, but beware of some of the more sinister deals that big money always seems to bring. And wipe your chin, you got some muck on it or something. If you thought it was tough back east, wait till you try to connect to the west. You'll need to use every resource available to reach your goal. Men, metal, and money will only get you so far. You'll need the determination of the original Iron Men to make this dream a reality. Wake up! I'm talking to you. I don't know about you whippersnappers these days. Now, if by some miracle you do make it, there'll be a celebration around the nation the likes we've never seen. Heard there's some valuable ore to be had up in the mountains. You need to make quick work of getting your lines up there to be the primary transport. Some areas are pretty remote and will require you to be as resourceful as possible. The business is there. You just gotta get in there. Now get! I always said, the only thing that puts out more hot air than a pot-bellied steam engine is a pot-bellied politician. Well, it seems Teddy Roosevelt wants to take a political tour of the Northwest. He wants to cover as much ground as possible. Well, now's your chance to prove your railroad to not only Teddy, but any future leaders. Seems I recall a man by the name of Harry Truman a few years later. Was fond of the whistle-stop tour also. Oh, and I'd advise you to make sure this ride goes well. I've seen Teddy use that big stick when he missed a stop. 6,000 miles of iron rail. Hoo-wee! That's what's going to have to be laid to reach across Canada. Raising the money in the East is just the beginning to completing this Canadian transcontinental. You'll need to keep your crew supplied and on track as the wilderness of Canada will challenge your every step. Your goal is to see a train pulling up to the shipyard in Vancouver. Good luck, and bring your long johns. In jolly old England, all this industrialization is really putting a cramp on the country. Coal fields are busting with ore needing to reach the cities. Textile mills are finding new markets abroad. See if you can put an end to the quibbling competition and become the dominant line. The margins will be very tight, so be careful of waste. And tie your shoes. Linking the cosmopolitan Paris with the exotic Near East is no small task. Glamour and intrigue will all ride on your little old line. But don't get too wrapped up in the luxury yourself. There are dozens of countries, territories, and empires to negotiate your way through. Keep your cool. Diplomacy will take you there in style. In Central Europe, the blast furnaces are heating up. Talk of nationalization brings hope to some and fear to others. So don't assume anything, because every turn hides a political ambush. The power belongs to the diplomat with the most iron. The German states need your help to see them through troubled times. So get the firebox a-burning and set the wheels a-turning. And watch your back. From the tranquil agricultural settings in the Bordeaux to the intensifying industrialization in the cities, France's underperforming hodgepodge of rails is a source of economic irritation and national shame. Ironically, France's nationalism cup runneth over. It's national and industrial power that France wants from you and your rail building. While we're here, I think I'll partake of some of that fine cuisine. Where can I get me some of them French fries? Now, the Alps, they're a natural barrier between the Mediterranean and Central Europe. Centuries ago, the Romans found the area of the Brenner Pass to be the lowest passage through these peaks. There may be a better way, though. The Alps are unforgiving, but if you manage to tame them enough to get your lines through, a bountiful and beautiful passage to the Mediterranean will be yours, and all of Europe will be eternally grateful. Oh, by the way, bring your earmuffs and your mittens. With the Cold War over, it's just a matter of time before a talented individual such as yourself will create order out of chaos and bring the former Warsaw Pact regions new economic life. Among the great many opportunities all around you, there's a bonus for connecting Frankfurt to Moscow. Bring me back a piece of the wall. The Taj Mahal, in most all of India, was long thought to be a British claim. France, however, has seized an opportunity to shift rail rights of way in India. You must be very cunning, though. Put your diplomatic and rail-building talents to work and give the Brits a run for their money. Literally. Your efficiency and resourcefulness is sure to make India look to France for rail transport in the future. So don't slouch, sit up straight, and button your top button. Dynasty after dynasty has ruled these islands. Closed for centuries to outside influences, Japan now wants your help to bring it modern rail. Well, bending ancient traditions, though, is gonna be tough. But by proving yourself the most efficient and frugal, you may become the single most dominant rail mogul in Japan. Hard place, that Australia, but business is business, regardless of the location. The long rail across the Nullarbor Plains is ready to go, but good luck trying to make any money. The traffic on that single line is going to be atrocious. Be prepared when you do finally hit that plane, because there's no turning back once you're on it. Strange how these quiet hills could hide such chaos. The Chinese Civil War is now over, and the People's Republic wants you to fix up that raggedy rail system of theirs. Crops are going bad in the fields, and the nation's exports are suffering without any good transportation in place. There's not a lot to work with either, so you'll need to be very resourceful. I know you can do it, though. And the People's Republic will be most grateful. Years of neglect and mismanagement have left the Australian lines a mess. How do you modernize an outdated rail system without losing the shirt off your back? Huh, that's your problem. Good luck. I'm not sure this can be done. The beaches of the Cape of Good Hope connected to the pyramids outside of Cairo? It's never been done. The closest anyone came was halfway, and the man died trying. This is going to be really tough. It's left all before you in ruin. Spanning the African continent with its jungles and worse, its deserts, will certainly take its toll. To complete this campaign, the beaches of the Cape must be connected to the pyramids of Cairo.
Soaring through the summer breeze, the haunted wailing of a steam train, it takes me back and sets my spirit free. My parents died when I was just a boy. They sent me to my aunt in Tennessee, but in those hills I stumbled on the railroad. So much older, the heartache and the pain has surely changed. But now my blood is of the railroad. It's got my heart, it courses through my veins.
Well, hello there. It's right good to see you. The museum's supposed to be closed today, but I guess it's okay if you look around. I was down in the boiler room fixing that darn contraption again. Can't complain, though. That's why they keep me around here. Seems I'm one of the few geezers left that know anything about this old stuff. I thought I'd come upstairs and see who was here. Guess I ain't gonna get a nap with you around. Oh, I'm just funning you now. Right glad for the company, actually. What? Oh, yeah, I guess you're looking at all them highfalutin display cases. They tell a story of some pretty influential people from the old days. Powerful industrialists they call Tycoons. Right pretty name for the bad ones. Reckon it ain't good enough for the honorable ones. They were all men of action, though. Changed the world, they did. But they all started off same as regular folks like you and me. Oh? You think you could build an empire of your own if you'd gotten started in them days? Well, why don't you give it a try, then? Click on that first display case on the left there and get started. This here's about the American West. Well, west of New York City anyhow. You see, the nation hadn't been able to use much of the land west of the Appalachian Mountains because it was just too difficult to move goods to and from those markets. Now, the trains changed all that. Now, the nation had a quick and reliable form of transportation. Go west, the man said, and so they did, by the trainload. Great job. Don't know if I could have done better myself. Now, with that important link in place, I do believe there's a tidal wave of folks getting ready to follow the railroad west into America's newly opened heartland. In the middle of the 1800s, things were right tough in the old world of Europe. Most of the land was owned and controlled by the aristocracy, and that meant few opportunities for the common folk. But in America, you could make a name for yourself instead of having to inherit the right one. Whole German communities picked up and resettled in the Midwest, lock, stock, and barrel. Sometimes you could barely tell you weren't back in the old country. Well, you got 'em all neatly resettled and made a pretty penny for yourself. Fine, real fine. I think I'll get me a bratwurst. Say, that there is a right interesting story. It's a story about a race. Two companies, the Central Pacific and the Union Pacific Railroads, set out to connect the East and the West Coast of the United States by rail, although at the time they weren't so united. However, by the time they finished, everyone was mighty proud, and none too shy to say so. Half of the journey here was the job of the Central Pacific. Their task was to challenge the Rocky Mountains themselves. You built that route lickety-split. I might start to thinking you'd done this before. Molehills out of mountains is what you made them Rockies. Nacogdoches, Texas. Now, it didn't have much of a ring to it back in 1888 either, but that year it put the state of Texas on an industrial track that hasn't derailed yet. Thanks to Pentillo Higgins and Captain Lucas. Now, these fellers risked their entire fortunes on this little used stuff that locals call Texas tea, black gold, or maybe you've heard the name oil. Yep, Texas had a new industry from that day on, and it didn't include cattle. Go figure. Finished up that job slicker than grease on a rail, or should I say oil. In 1941, America had just entered World War II. Now, they were right stubborn at first. Didn't want to get involved in European politics and such. Well, that changed after Pearl Harbor. The war stirred up a hornet's nest of transportation worries. War means men and material, and that meant transportation. The fact that it was World War II meant that it was one humdinger of a scale. They could have used your know-how, don't you think? You certainly untied that knot. Not a minute too soon, for my reckoning. Good work. Now that you've helped America through her greatest crisis, it's time to switch gears and focus on the old world, Europe. Back in 1848, monarchies were being threatened all over Europe. It was about that time that a young man named Otto von Bismarck started work on unifying the Germanic nations in Central Europe. He saw the upheaval as the perfect opportunity to create a German nation under one centralized government. He was no man of the people, but his political and social savvy saw that these small countries could grow together into a major power in Europe. Now, ain't you just a big old empire builder? All those independent states just up and followed your lead. Looks like nothing you can't do. In 1860, Britain's worldwide empire was well underway. However, the infrastructure on the island itself was not up to the task of fueling the world's first industrialized nation. No town in Scotland was in greater need of rail link than Edinburgh. Now, this was no easy task, because laying the track was only one half of the job. This line needed to become the essence of British railway engineering, speed, and efficiency. Now, think you know what it takes to make this kind of thing happen? Zoom! Like bald lightning, I says. You handle that like a champ. I'm sure history will thank you right kindly. The Alps. Them's one tough chunk of rocks, that's for sure. For centuries, it's been a difficult barrier and made travel from Italy to Germany too costly for commerce. That's where the train come in. See, getting through and making a connection to the north and south means a whole new world for Europe. Yep, the treasure in commerce was to be had by those brave enough to challenge them mountains. Sure is one heck of a rock, though. Little bit here, little bit there. Turn that rock into a pile of gravel to set your rails on. I was right happy to watch you do it, too. Northern and Southern Europe just got a little closer because of you. It was after France's defeat in the Franco-Prussian War that the French citizens once again demanded political change. The result was a new government known as the Third Republic. It was a fragile start, though, like a scared little rabbit. They needed to prove this government was strong and resourceful, so they took to building up the country's infrastructure. I think you'll see it weren't so easy. Vive la Frenches! Or something. You know, you showed them there's nothing that can't be done well if you put your mind to it. The government is as strong as you now. Now this here is the legacy of the Orient Express. This railway was one of the most romantic and celebrated railways in the world. It was started in 1883 and was one of the first European railways to regularly cross national borders. Its most exotic leg of the journey started in Vienna, Austria, and ended in the ancient city of Istanbul, Turkey. Getting the train going on this route was a monumental task of both politics and engineering. Not a job for the casual tycoon. Handle that like a real-life diplomat, you did. Nary a scratch on you, neither. Fine work. But you know, railroads weren't just a plaything of the Europeans and the Americans. The rest of the world had caught railroad fever too, and hoped to use railroads to close that gap and catch up to the rich countries of Europe and North America. Whoa, now, ain't you in the wrong display room? Go to the room on the right by clicking on the sign shaped like a right-facing arrow. Back before 1880 in Argentina, attacks from Native Americans in the Pampas region west of Buenos Aires made expansion into the interior difficult. In 1879, General Julio A. Roca began what was called the War of the Desert, and by 1880, he had quelled all hostilities in the West and opened ranching and farming for exports. Now, this sparked what was to be the longest period of growth Argentina would see to date. General Roca, step aside. There's a new general in town. Boy, howdy. Ha! The gauchos are moving into the new range like cattle. Argentina won't be crying over much now. For 2 decades, the great tycoon Cecil Rhodes struggled to build the longest, toughest railroad of them all. A railroad that would connect the Cape of Good Hope at the southern tip of Africa all the way up to Cairo at the northern end of the continent, crossing the plains, jungles, and desert. He only got partway there before dying in 1902. Many have tried to complete this link, but in over 100 years, no one has yet to succeed. Are you sure you got the stomach for this job? Well, the dark continent ain't gonna be nearly as dark now that you hep out. Right pretty piece of work, if I say so myself. Oh, that there was quite a dilemma. On June 16th, 1964, an earthquake registering 7.5 hit Niigata, Japan. Luckily, few people lost their lives, but the damage was quite bad. Help was badly needed if more people weren't going to suffer from lack of supplies. The city was all beat up, right bad. Maybe you could lend a hand? You're just a humdinger of a troubleshooter, ain't you? Great work, friend, just great. You know, here we are with almost 300 years of history since the first iron spike in 1830. What do you mean you weren't thinking about the most recent 100 years, the 21st century? Sheesh, the history books these days can't hardly separate fact from science fiction. Whoa, now, ain't you in the wrong display room? Go to the room on the right by clicking on the sign shaped like a right-facing arrow. After the global warming catastrophe during the early half of the 21st century, the polar ice caps melted and exposed new areas that once were covered by snow and ice. The newly exposed areas became prized real estate in these dark times. Greenland was one of these places. Unfortunately, the land was barren. That's when some scientists put together some genetic seeds. Seems they done fixed them so they grow real quick like. The problem is getting them to spread out before they gone bad. You gotta think fast if you're gonna help out. Figured it out, I see. Green and purty. The name Greenland isn't a joke anymore. Now don't get all high and mighty on me. You got other things left to do. Holland never says die. The Dutch were at it again, and they reclaimed their homeland and then some. 20 years after being one of the first nations claimed by the rising waters generated by global warming, the Dutch, who were then living on floating atolls, began to start building dikes again. With that and them newfangled windmills, they done pumped out a whole new home from the seas. People's coming in from everywhere, though, and ain't much left of the old transportation system. You got any ideas? Now, ain't you the smartest little problem solver? Got that all fixed up before they knew they had a problem. The Dutch are a dominant force in Europe once again. Expect they'll be throwing tulips at your feet any time now. Seems the huge shift in world geography was apparently more than that poor old San Andreas fault could take. It snapped with a vengeance and tore a big chunk of California away from the mainland of North America. Fortunately, it heaved up above sea level, too, and exposed a soggy but usable chunk of land. Now they gotta get resettled out there on that island.